But like with anything, when a word gets hijacked or the term or the phrase get hijacked and misunderstood, then people began to try to operate and manage relationships based off of what they believe to be these biblical principles, but they're not. The reality is that I want to be very clear. Submission isn't silence, and authority isn't ownership. If you love someone, the goal is not to control them. Control cannot be a method. My name is Dr. Gary O. White, and welcome to the Dr. G. O. White Show. Today, we're going to talk about an issue that was really born out of a conversation that I had with a group of men who were very high in their spirituality and their religiosity. And the debate centered around the concept of submission, right? Why men needed to expect that in a relationship and why women should expect to be submissive in a relationship. And it brought me to this question: what is really meant by submission? Now, everyone makes the argument, and quite often, generationally speaking, you hear the references to the Bible and some of the more common scriptures that you will hear where there's an emphasis on it. Colossians 3:18, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as it is fit to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them. We hear these things, and that theme in the Bible is about wives submitting yourselves and why this is a benefit or the expectation in a relationship. These scriptures, if you really pay attention to them, they actually are rooted in mutual respect, right? Responsibility and even the reverence, not a matter of dominance. But like with anything, when a word gets hijacked or the term or the phrase get hijacked and misunderstood, then people began to try to operate and manage relationships based off of what they believe to be these biblical principles, but they're not. The reality is that I want to be very clear. Submission isn't silence, and authority isn't ownership. If you love someone, the goal is not to control them. Control cannot be a method. So let's talk about what we really mean, or what really the concept of submission should really mean and how it should operate in relationships. So first and foremost, I'm going to make the argument that when the Bible is using it and we then begin to selectively interpret it, the problems in relationships began to become intense. So some common misunderstandings when we hear this, it centers around, or we hijack that concept, and then we begin to think that the word submission is centered around, and we behave as if it's a matter of power and control. Submission is misused in some relationships as a justification for men to be dominant or emotionally manipulative. Yeah, that's wives, submit yourselves unto your husband. We look at this and we buy into it. Some partners even equate submission with obedience or demanding silence or passivity. These are some concepts that we see, especially if you were raised in the church or you are someone that is really biblically centered and you're trying to fit something or a concept that has been hijacked or misused, and now people are trying to apply how they understand the word submission. They try to apply it to the relationship. So the scriptures are selectively quoted to control rather than to serve as an uplift in relationships. So we have to slow the tape down, and we have to reach the point that we really began to look at what submission means. Now, in contemporary times, I'm going to tell you that you get to remove the word submission. In relationships, don't be surprised if your partner has issues with this concept of being submissive, as if somehow if there's a difference of agreement or if there's a conflict, then the expectation, because I'm the man, so therefore you agree, or the concept of submitting, that is not how it should be understood. Mutual influence is a better concept than submission, right? identified the mutual influences as a marker of a healthy relationship, that it's really kind of reaching an agreement that there's some occasions where your partner may see things better than you. The difference or the conflict can't simply be resolved based off of your understanding of a biblical principle, so therefore you should submit. Equality in a relationship is another way to kind of think of the notion of submit. So I'm going to throw it out because I'm going to replace it with that concept. Why? Because decisions and power should be shared. While the roles may differ, right, values and authority are balanced. So there's some things that you as a man that you may take ownership of in the relationship or the marriage or in the family household that are different, right? So it's not unusual for you as a man to decide that you want to be the one to cut the grass, or as the man, if there's a issue with the bill collector, and it's not unusual that you want to take it and kind of deal with the conflict. But sometimes, brothers, you don't have the energy. Sometimes you don't have the insight. And so the concept of equality in the relationship, that brings the type of balance. So we're going to attack the word submissive, and we can replace it there. Also, you can look at even some of the theories around attachment and how relationships are built on trust and safety, not control. So when submission becomes coercive, it breaks trust and threatens the security in a relationship. So the attachment, when the bonds are strong, then the concept of the notion of being submissive to one another is not something that is put on the forefront when there are conflicts. So here are my alternatives: partnership and mutual yielding. Right? So throw submission out. Let's call it partnership and mutual yielding. It emphasizes collaboration over the concept of hierarchy. Now, I'm telling y'all this right now, not as a therapist, but I'm coming and telling you this as someone who's been with his college sweetheart for 37 years. I'm telling you that sometimes I have to yield because I don't know better. Sometimes I have to yield because my mind might be clouded. Your mind might be clouded. So partnership about mutual yielding and not keeping tabs. Okay, I agreed this time, so next time, then you need to agree. No, it's about mutual yielding, understanding that in the moment, who may have the greater insight. Another concept is responsiveness. Right? Think about that. Being attuned to your partner's emotional needs and responding with empathy and care. Sometimes your partner or you may be taking a stance around an issue, but it's more emotional than it is logical. And so when we see or find ourselves losing an argument or not winning, or our case for a decision that we need to make in a family is not holding up, and then we kind of yield to go back to this concept, well, I'm the man. No, responsiveness is about being in tune. The question is it a hill that I'm ready to die on? If you really began to look at it, most of the things in relationships where there are conflicts or difference of opinions, if you're really honest with yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and you ask yourself, how important is this issue? If it's only a 2, then behave as if it's a 2. Because the truth is, you'd much rather to be happy than to be right. And if it's only a 2 to you, then stop behaving as if it's a 10. Deference or mutual deference is another way to look at this notion of submission. So again, I'm throwing it out. So use carefully. Deference can reflect to, listen to this, to being voluntary, acting and honoring in your partner's position. That means that your partner may have a vision, may have a view or a perspective, and you may not necessarily see it. So deference really speaks to wisdom that says that, guess what? I'm going to yield. I don't agree. I don't see it. I don't understand it. But baby, as long as you understand, I'm going to yield. So sometimes the concept of yielding is not a matter of being submissive. Sometimes it's just an issue of just backing down. I don't have to win. When you enter relationships or you find yourself at the point in a relationship where you're keeping tabs or you think that you have to win, then the concept of deference becomes challenging. Now, all of a sudden, everything on a scale of 1 to 10, you're treating it like a 10, not because it's a 10, it's because you want to win. So the notion of submission, when you take the point of putting your foot down and taking a stance, this has nothing to do with a mutual understanding. You're losing and you want to pull out this concept of a card. Another way to think about this notion of just kind of agreeing rather than the concept of submission is supportive alignment, moving in the same direction together. That's the concept of supportive alignment, aligning by shared goals and shared values. Now together you all are pushing. Sometimes your partner may need to not question you, but ask some questions concerning your thought or your process or a decision that you may want to make. Questioning and asking questions is two separate things. Sometimes submission is in the form of helping you talk through it. Even though I still don't understand, guess what? Go ahead and move forward with it, but not holding your partner accountable. So you've agreed, you back down, your partner decides to do it, it didn't work out. Now you're saying, I told you, you should have listened to me in the first place. That is how the concept of submission becomes wrongfully used. Another way to think about it, and I'm pushing through these, you all, because I want you in the contemporary time to back away from the term submission and think of these concepts that I'm offering up to you. Cooperative leadership. I know that's a long word, and it takes much more energy as opposed to simply saying submit. But leadership is fluid and is shared. It's based on situations and strengths and needs. Listen. You're the man of the house, but she has an MBA in accounting. So just because you're the man of the house, she may have more knowledge, understanding, and wisdom as it relates to some of the financial decision making. And so in that regard, this has nothing to do with a matter of submit, or if it does, it's about you submitting to the knowledge, skills, and abilities of your partner. Over time, you'll see that this yin and yang or give and get principle kind of exists in all healthy relationships. So trusting and surrendering sometimes becomes the most important thing from a spiritual standpoint or a deeply emotional standpoint, that I want to surrender and to your views or your perspectives. Watch this, because I see how important it is to you. So now you're taking a strong stand on something that's not really that important to you, but you get your partner to submit. This is how you destroy the communication and the issues of trust in a relationship. If it's not that important to you, but you see that your partner possesses that, then the concept of submit simply does not fit. So we're reframing the concept of submission into what you are hearing to be healthy dynamics. This is what we really want to push. So if you're coming from a religious or cultural background where submission is a value concept, you can still redefine it in these modern terms, because submission means willingly and supporting each other in the growth and the well-being. It's always mutual, and it's always a need and a demand for an understanding. So I'm going to ask you to submit to these concepts in the road to strengthening your own relationship. I'm Dr. Gary L. White, and I'll toast to that.